All right, good morning, y'all. How you been? Look good. You look, look. You see these? They look really good over there. You see them? About 8 of them right there. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Hey, I'm Arthur. I'm one of the pastors here. So welcome to Southcrest. And if it's your first time here, especially glad that you're here today. And thanks for finding the warehouse at the end of the road where God shows up on Sunday mornings. It's a great place to be. If it's your first time here, I'd love to meet you personally. And usually I tell us at the very end. So if you, if you think, maybe. So if it's your first time here, I'll be out in the lobby. There's a big giant sign out there on the side. It says, reaching Atlanta one relationship at a time. I'll be underneath that sign. I would love to meet you. Just swing by there for a second afterwards. And if you have not yet registered for our big marriage giveaway, we're not giving away a marriage, but we're giving away a weekend getaway. It was kind of funny. I saw something on the announcements this morning that said short-term marriage study. And I'm like, no, we're not doing short-term marriages around here. But that was kind of funny. But anyway, if you have not registered for our big giveaway, do that. And if you're watching online, here's what I want you to do. If you want to register for our giveaway online, there's a connection card option online. So click that little box that says connection card. And so we'll take all of our online connection cards this weekend, and we'll throw them in the drawing as a possible winner for our married couple getaway. And of course, if you're in LaGrange, you can do that in the lobby. If you're here in Noonan, you can do that as well. And just drop it in the big giant red heart out in the lobby. So don't forget about that, because we're wrapping up our series today, starting a new series next week called True Colors. And we're going to be talking about what does a true believer really look like, because the world hangs all kinds of labels on us. And we're going to say, well, maybe so, but here's what the Bible says. And this is who we're trying to be. So we're going to talk about that for the next few weeks, starting next Sunday. And if you are here for the first time, I just want you to know that ordinarily we don't have a lot of furniture on the stage and gorgeous people sitting behind me. Usually we're all not like this. Today we're wrapping up a series on marriage, so I want everybody to hear a little bit about some experiences in marriage and how you can have a marriage that lasts a lifetime. So we're going to talk about that for a little bit this morning. And some of you may go, hey, do you guys teach the Bible here? And yes, we do. And we're going to get that played more at the end because I want to hear from some people who've got some great stories to tell today. But before we start, I need to tell you one more thing, and I promise I'll stop after this. I love middle school and high school students. I have spent about half my life hanging out with middle school, high school, and college students, and they're some of my favorite people in the whole world. And when my wife Lori and I were praying and trying to determine God's will, and leaders at Southcrest were as well, trying to figure out, were we supposed to be coming here or not, and was God in this? And now we all look back and go, yes, it's amazing that God just led us all here at the right time, at the right place. But one of the things that really, made my antenna go up and go, I need to see a little bit more of what's happening at Southcrest was when I heard last year about beach camp. And I thought, man, this is incredible, because I spent about 10 years of my life just traveling and speaking at camps and conferences and retreats for middle school, high school, and college students. So a huge part of my life has been spent there. I know what happens when you're able to get a bunch of students out of their comfort zone, out of being at home all the time, and get to a place where they can just hear from the Lord without so many other distractions. I know what happens. And over the years, we've just seen thousands of decisions for Christ made at beach camp at Southcrest. And not only is student ministry a huge deal, but children's ministry is a huge deal too. And so we've got Pine Cove coming up this summer, which is a huge opportunity for children in our community to come into a relationship with Jesus. And so I tell you all that to tell you this. I want as many students and children as possible to go to beach camp and to come to Pine Cove this summer. And here's the deal. Some people would like to go, but they can't afford it. And so I'm asking you, would you please consider giving scholarship money to help children be able to attend Pine Cove, and middle school and high school students to be able to go to beach camp? And, listen, no kidding, everybody in here can go online today and you can give some money to help with scholarships for that. And some of the people are like, man, it'd be a real stretch for me to give $25. I get that. But $25, if all of us gave $25, that would be great. Some people in here, you could write a check for $25,000 a day. I'm not kidding. I've walked through the parking lot. You laugh, I'm not laughing. I will never, ever be ashamed or afraid, and I will always be bold when asking for money so that we can minister to middle school, high school students and children. We'll never, ever back away from that. I know the difference it makes. So that's what I'm asking you to do. Would you step up and do something? And I'm not going to ask you to do something I'm not doing. Okay, I won't ever do that. And so my wife Lori and I, we're doing that. And so I want to encourage you to do that as well. And so you can do it online. You can do that. You can mark it on an offering envelope and give it to one of the people by the door on the way out today. If you're one of the 5 or 6 people today that's going to write a check for $25,000, then what I want you to do is you let us know and we'll take care of that. All right. So, but let's talk about marriage for just a minute, because here's the deal. Nobody, it seems to me, ever thinks about the last day of their marriage. I've done a lot of weddings over the years, and everybody gets all geeked up about the wedding, right? Because, we got to talk about the food, which is important. And we've got to talk about pictures and flowers and where we're going to be and what we're going to wear and all that stuff. We're going to talk about getting ready for the wedding. And and there's so many websites that you can go look at about figuring out the perfect wedding, and everybody wants everything just to be just right and in the right place at the right time. But nobody ever thinks about, what does marriage look like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now. Nobody ever walks down the aisle saying, I tell you what, we'll be divorced by 3 o'clock this afternoon. Nobody does that. I have been at weddings where somebody did not want to come walking down the aisle. And I have had to go back and say, well, let's talk about this for a minute. You don't have to do this. But I'm telling you, nobody walks through a wedding thinking, can't wait to get divorced. Nobody. So today I want us to talk about a long-term plan for marriage. Because if you don't have a plan, you're not going to know where you're going. You can't establish direction if you don't know the destination. And that's what we're going to talk about for a little bit today. And and here's the thing. There are a lot of marriages that end in disappointment and discouragement. They end in disappointment because the marriage ends in divorce. The marriage ends in disappointment and discouragement because you're standing beside a coffin and you're going, I wish we had just done more of. I wish we'd just done less of everybody. Thinks about the wedding day. And most people don't think about the last day. But what if you had a plan so that on that last day, the last day that you are with your spouse, because a very small percentage of us are going to pass away simultaneously with our wives or our husbands. But what if you had a plan so when that last day comes, you said, you know what? We had a great marriage. Period. Not we had a great marriage, but you could just say, we had a great marriage. And so that's what we want to talk about for a little bit today. So I invited these folks who are sitting behind me. They very graciously agreed to sit up here and to encourage us and tell some stories today. So I hope we'll be able to learn from some things from each one of them today, if that's okay. So I'll find a seat. And Bob, would you introduce yourself and your wife? Tell us a little bit how long you've been married.
I'm Bob Miller, and this is my wife, Colleen Miller. And God has given us almost 51 years of marriage. I'll just add that we were married on Flag Day in June because I wanted to make sure that I never forgot my anniversary. So I figured holiday I'm not ever going to forget. And this has special meaning for me and for all you out there that one year when I was growing up, my dad and I forgot my mother's birthday. So if you ever get in that situation, you don't want to ever have to get that again. So that was not good.
If you ever get in that situation, maybe you should just leave town, right? And so Colleen, tell us a little bit about your children.
We have a wonderful family. We have been blessed with 2 sons, Gavin Miller, Brandon Miller, and 2 amazing daughter-in-laws. Gavin's wife is Holly, and Brandon's wife is Ashley. And Gavin and Brandon both have 2 boys and 1 girl in their family. Gavin's family, there's Addie, Austin, and Aiden. And in Brandon's family, there's Preston and Bryce and Jenna. And our sons were 11 years apart. So we have the older children and the younger children. And we are so blessed with such amazing grandchildren. And one other thing, I am so very, very thrilled that God has blessed us in that we are worshiping together here at this church.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. So Cameron's in the middle of the room, big surprise. Can't keep his hands off Kendi. He keeps curling up with her. Every time he sits on the couch, he gets a little closer to her. So anyway, tell us a little bit about your kids and how long y'all have been married.
Yeah. What? Oh, yeah. This is my beautiful wife, Kendi. We've been married 15 years in January. And so it's been a journey. It's been highs and lows and all the in-betweens. And if you know us, we're fairly open about just our struggles and that sort of fun stuff. But also, we have had an incredible marriage so far. And we're looking forward to many more. Why am I so nervous? I usually don't get nervous in front of a bunch of people. We have 3 incredible kids. Our story's a little different. So we do have a 20-year-old. We've got a 20-year-old, and he is in school, and then also works for Southern Ground Camp, and he's wanting to be a chef and all that sorts of fun stuff. Then we also have our 12-year-old, who is she is my little politician. She loves politics. That's weird. And she keeps me on my toes, and she's highly intelligent, and she's the apple of my eye for sure. And then we have our 5-year-old Tasmanian bunny. He's Briggs, and if you've been around the church at all, you know Briggs because he thinks he owns the place. Last night we were shopping, and Briggs was playing WWE with Daddy in the car. And we had someone from the church pull up next to us, and he literally was facing the back but had his legs wrapped around me and punching me with everything he had as hard as he could. So that's Briggs. And the people that pulled up just started laughing because they saw it was me and was like, oh, that's awesome. You're a great parent. So it's good.
That's good. That's good. And so, and Boyd, would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and Pat?
Yes, my name is Boyd McBurnett, and this is my beautiful, amazing, wonderful wife, Patricia.
Is he bothering you?
And we've been married almost 42 wonderful, amazing, what was it, fantastic? Beautiful. Okay, amazing years. It's a blast.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me what initially attracted you to Pat?
Her shyness. She's a person, and some of you know her, but when she walks in the room, she just lights up everything. She has this amazing spirit, this amazing joy in her heart, and it just exudes everywhere. And it just filled me so full of happiness that I thought, hey, this is a pretty good way to spend your life. And so for the entertainment value, I decided that I needed to see if I could talk her into marrying me. And I did.
Yeah.
Yay.
Way to go. Way to go. So, Kendi, what was it that initially attracted you to Cameron? You're in
Well-
church. Tell the truth.
Okay. The full truth is that Cameron's mom set us up on a blind date. I had never met him. And I went home and told my roommate it was a free meal. So the free meal is what attracted me to him initially. But what really, he told his mom he was going to marry me, so he won. But what initially really made me attracted to him was his love for the Lord. And I know that sounds cheesy, but I was a single mom, and I had never had someone, a man, ask me, you know, what are you reading in Scripture, and what are you praying about? What is God doing in your life? And I didn't really talk to him a lot during the day, so once I got Isaiah in bed, I would call him, and then we would stay on the phone for hours. And I always knew, like, it encouraged me to want to read my Bible because I wanted to have something to say to him when he asked me, you know, what are you reading? I didn't want to say nothing.
Right.
So that his relationship with God is what initially attracted me to him.
That's good. You know, gentlemen, I have tried to give you some pointers every week, because I'm not a lady, never have wanted to be a lady, so I don't understand how that works. I don't understand how, and I think most men would agree with me, I don't understand how the female mind works. I'm not that smart. But did you hear what Kendi said? You should write that down. I mean, did you hear what was attractive about Cameron to her was that his walk with the Lord. And, you don't have to pretend to be one way when you're around your friends and another way when you're trying to start a relationship with a girl. But instead, you can be consistent all the time. And as you're growing your relationship with the Lord, that is very attractive to girls, to young women who are looking to get married. Also, an education and a job, very attractive. But a whole other story for a different day, right? So, Bob, you and Colleen, who said I love you first?
I did.
How'd that go?
So. I remember we were we had gone on a blind date for the first time we met each other, and
Wasn't I love you night?
yeah, but she was teaching school, and I was going to school, and she had kind of decided that she was going to go back to her hometown in Illinois to continue teaching over there. And so we had a discussion in a garage. I asked, what are our plans? And so we discussed that. And then after that, I said, I love you, and would you marry me? And she said yes.
Way to go. So, Colleen, were you expecting that night, or was that a surprise?
No, a lot of time had passed from the first date, which he said was a blind date, and I was not really all that impressed that night. He was very much a gentleman, but there wasn't much fun, and he was pretty low-keyed. And so when I went back to the apartment, my roommate said, well, tell us about it. What do you think? And I said, well, really a nice guy, but I just really don't think he is my type. And then he kept pursuing, and we went out on more dates, and finally, after several months, I could feel God saying, oh yes, he is your type. And what has come out over these years is Bob really does have a good sense of humor, and so his boys do too, and his grandsons as well. So it's kind of rough for me to be around all of these males because somehow I end up being the brunt of the humor. That's not fun.
Yeah.
But the humor is a very important part in our family.
It is. That you have to learn to laugh together, and you've got to have times where you can kick your head back and just laugh and relax. It's a big deal. Pat, could you tell me a little bit maybe about one of your memories from your wedding day?
Oh, our wedding day. I was in the. I will never forget it. I was in the church in Cartersville. Boyd was at his apartment in College Park. It's important that you know there was no GPS. There were no cell phones back then. Boyd's job was to kind of gather up the best man, his family, all the relatives, the friends in Atlanta, and they were going to follow him kind of in a caravan to Cartersville, to the church. I'm in the church. I'm in that little room where they put the bride, and it's getting, close to time for them to be showing up. And the maid of honor comes back and says, Boyd is not here. Nobody else from Atlanta is here either. And I said, that's okay. So about 5 minutes goes by, and the girl who's supposed to be manning the register, the wedding register, comes back in that little room and says, Boyd's still not here, and neither is anybody else from Atlanta. After about the fourth time this had happened, I will admit the devil took over, and I thought, that man is going to stand me up. He has backed out. He's going to leave me right here at this wedding. And I thought, I'm going to kill him. But I'm going to kill him in a way that they can't catch me for doing it. How dare he leave me at this wedding? Well, about 10 seconds after I had that thought, boop, in they come. Everybody comes walking in. It was 5 minutes before the wedding. You're not supposed to be late for a wedding or a funeral. And Boyd did a really good job of almost having both of them, a wedding and a funeral, right there.
I love Pat, and I love the way she talks, and I love the way that she is cutting her eyes at Boyd right now. That's funny. So, the thing is everybody who is married has some conflict in their relationship. And some people think that they don't have conflict in a relationship, and we have a name for that. We call that lying. That old deal about 93% of people have conflict in relationships, and 7% are liars. That's what applies here. So let me ask you just for a minute. Bob and Colleen, what are some things that you have learned about resolving conflict in your marriage over the years?
When we have arguments, we tend to clam up and go our separate ways and take time to think it through and pray about it. And then later, when we don't want to kill each other, as Pat says, we come back together and talk about it and be ready to say, I'm sorry if you are the culprit of the situation, and kiss and make up.
Yeah, it is such a big deal to be willing to say, I'm sorry, when you realize that you've said something you shouldn't have said, that you stepped across a boundary, when there's been some hurt that's occurred. It's a huge deal to come back and to say, I'm sorry. It makes all the difference in the world. Cameron, how about you and Kendi? What are some things that you guys have learned about resolving conflict?
That I'm not always right. That's the biggest thing, because I like to think that I'm right even when I'm wrong. It's not a good trait. I think for me, and for the two of us, it was giving her space. she is a processor, so she has to process everything. And I want to fix everything. So if I hurt her or if I've done something wrong, I want to fix it right then and there, like today. That's not how she works. She needs to process. And then once she's processed things, that's when we work through it. And that's when we talk through it. And I think, too, that space is given for us to cool down. Because we're both very strong personalities, believe it or not. Yes. Yeah. And so we have to. We need space. And just realizing it. I think we used to try and take care of it just right there. Like I really would. I'd be like, let's take care of this. I'm sorry. And she'd be like, just give me time. And so it's a learning that she needs time. Do you have anything?
Yeah, after I've had my time, if you know Cameron, you know he has a big personality. And I can tend to get frazzled and overwhelmed when we're having a conflict and I just lose track of everything that I was going to say because everything he has said has overpowered what I was going to say. So a lot of times I'll send him an email or a text, usually like a really long email, but then I know that I've been able to say everything that I wanted to say in the way I wanted to say it and that he has at least read it. And then later that night we'll talk about it and that way we can make sure that my points don't get overlooked.
Yeah. Well, it's a huge deal in conflict is to make sure that each person feels like they have been heard. And that's a good question to ask when you're talking through things and say, look, this is what I think you're saying. Is that accurate, what I'm saying back to you? Is that what you're actually saying? Because sometimes we try and interpret things and try and read between the lines a little bit too much. And, as a matter of fact, Cameron and Kendi are teaching a new short-term study here at our Noonan campus starting next week. And it will go on simultaneously with one of our services. What time is that? What time are you doing? At 11. It's going to be taught during the 11 o'clock service over in the switch room, if you'd like to be a part of that, starting next week. Boyd, how about you and Pat? What are some things that you guys have learned about resolving conflict?
Well, one of the first things is we've made a lifelong commitment to each other. And divorce is off the table, although you may have learned that murder might be something that could happen. But
she's got to have something to keep you in line, right?
Yeah, that's true. But that gives you the security that you're going to disagree, but there's not a threat to the relationship. And we are similar to the other folks in that when we do have a disagreement, we usually let things kind of settle down for a little while. I don't want to be the toothpaste out of the tube and say something I can't take back. And so we let things settle down a little bit, and then we get together and discuss what it is that has happened and say I'm sorry, or I say I'm sorry, because I'm usually the one that's sorry.
Yeah, because you asked her out.
Yeah, I asked her out. I started it. What can I say?
That's right.
How about you?
Mainly, that words are important. The Bible tells you that. And you can kill each other with the tongue. And so I've learned not to spout off, which is my tendency to just, let me tell you what I think about that, especially now in the way social media is. We all think we have to be very clever and cute and quick. And so really for the past 2 years, I've been trying to at least count to 10 before I say something smart. And that's helping. Just pause for a second. You don't have to try to belittle each other when you don't agree on things, for sure.
Sometimes it's an uncomfortable thing to talk about, but when you are not in conflict and things are going great, if you think about it, have a conversation, say, hey, look, the next time that we have a disagreement, what is the best way that I can talk to you during that situation? And then the other one say, well, how can I talk to you? Because that's a learning time. And arguing is not bad. Arguing can be very helpful, but it does not have to be hurtful. Big difference between being helpful and being hurtful. And we don't want to hurt anyone, especially to murder someone with our tongues, as Pat was just saying. What would be a couple things, Boyd and Pat, that you might say, a couple keys that you think have been important for you guys for staying married for almost 42 years?
Marry your friend. I mean, yes, he's cute. You know, there were things that attracted me to him, but it helps if you're friends with the person you've married. But the piece of paper that we had when we finally did get married had holy matrimony written across the front. And you need to be pretty serious when you go down that aisle, knowing that it is a God-ordained thing that's happening. It is holy matrimony. So that's going to keep you pretty serious about staying married anyway. I find that a lot of people forget their good manners. You're really nice to the folks at church, the folks at work, and then you get home. And when was the last time you thanked your husband or wife for something they did? Something very little. Sometimes you go to the refrigerator to get a drink of Coke or something, and you know, you could stop and say, would you like a drink too? There are just some mannerly things that we forget to use with our the person that we love more than anybody else in the world. There are also 3 books that, and I didn't author any of the books. I don't get any proceeds, but I swear the Holy Bible, that's a great one for keeping you married. Another one is the 5 Love Languages. Boyd and I read those books and we read the Love Languages book. And at the very end took the test and discovered one of the reasons we worked so well together is we spoke the same love language, even though we were almost completely different personalities. And the other one was men are like waffles, women are like spaghetti. So if there's a retreat at the church or you've got the chance to take a workshop or something, do it. Take advantage of those things because they will help you grow and understand each other and stay married.
You know, I got real nervous when you said that about going to the refrigerator because I thought you were going to say you shouldn't go to the refrigerator and get the milk jug and drink out of the jug and put it back in because I get in trouble for that a lot. And say I do this and I ask Laura if she wants some and she's nothing. So Bob and Colleen, what would you say have been some keys for you guys in staying married for almost 51 years? I have to say this. What? Okay. Time out. Right here. Time out. Okay. Because I thought this was, because I told them this morning, I said, we're going to really see marriage going on because we got one microphone for each couple. So we'll see, how that goes, right? But I'm sorry, Colleen, you can come hit me over the head in a minute if you want to, but it's like, I just don't want to talk. I just want to sit there. So I thought that was funny that you said, give me the mic. So.
Well, side thought on that.
You're good.
A side thought there is I taught children, little bitty children, for years and years in my career. And I was a ham at it, so to speak, but put me in front of adults, and it's a panicky, scary feeling. So this was where I was coming from when you said that. But to let you know how I'm handling this, I am pretending you're all kindergartners.
They are.
Makes it easier. Okay, I will start and Bob will finish. We entered the marriage as Christians and each of us had been a Christian for over a decade, I believe. So that's a great start. But if that is not where you are, you can certainly make it that way wherever you are in life. And because of that, we did turn to God and strive to keep God in our marriage. And that always helped because we found that, that was a perfect way to search for direction and wisdom. And of course, loving and honoring and respecting each other as well.
Well, as my wife said, we were in church from the time we dated until today. And to solve conflicts, one way that we do things is every morning we have our devotions. And we discuss that from time to time. And we always start our morning off with a kiss. Every morning. And when we go to bed at night, we have a kiss. Not real important maybe, but it just feels right. And we have been blessed with some great preachers such as Arthur and great Sunday school teachers. And the Sunday school teachers that come to my mind and is Reuben and Eunice Kinsey, who lived on Ginger Cake Road, which we have some ginger cake people down here that are members of our church. And they taught us so much. I mean, when you looked at them, you saw God's radiance on their faces. And they led us in all kinds of studies. And one study that they led us in was tithing. We were not tithing at that time. We were only been married, I guess, about 4 or 5 years. And so my job was kind of up and down. Hers was steady for 38 years teaching school. But they taught about a 5-week course on tithing. And we came home after that study and said, let's try it. And I can't say that it was always easy. It wasn't. We had some discussions on where to put money and to keep our tithe going. But after a few months, when you say it's automatic. The first check that we write every month is our tithe. And so that's a good way of solving conflict.
Keeps God first, doesn't it? Boyd, if you could go back and talk to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Well, I would tell myself that the main thing in a successful marriage is to get Christ in your life and build your relationship with Christ. That is the greatest example of love and sacrifice that there is. And with that as the center of your life, it really helps you in dealing with other folks. And that is a very important thing in dealing with your wife. Also, the books that Pat mentioned had really helped us. We actually did a marriage. We taught those books in class. And it really helps you understand what makes your spouse, what really fills her love tank, and how you can relate to her. Maybe you're somebody who doesn't care about gifts. And so somebody gives you a gift and you go, well, thank you, that's very nice. But your wife loves gifts, even if it's a small one. And if you ignore that, then she's not going to feel fulfilled and she's not going to feel the love that you're trying to give her. You might be a service guy. You might think washing her car is going to make her happy. And that's not true. And those books will help you understand that. And then the spaghetti and waffles further explains the complicated female, that lots of things go on, and that if you're a guy, when she comes in the room to talk to you, you really need to turn the TV sound down and face her. Otherwise, wow, upside the head.
I hear that. So, Bob, how about you and Colleen? Do you have some advice that you would go back in time and tell your 20-year-old selves about marriage, if you could?
I think we have covered a good bit of it. I just really do want to reiterate having a church home and being actively involved in the church is for yourselves, but especially too for your children. And that is one area when the children start coming. Sometimes that can really kind of mess up your marriage for a while because you're giving so much attention to the children that you're neglecting one another. And another thing along that line, when when there's conflict coming up with the children, parents need to, in my estimation, stay supportive of one another in the correction and discipline and rearing of their children. Sometimes that's not real easy, and I think when that's the case, then you discuss this with your spouse out of ear range of your children and settle that between you as far as what is the best thing to do here, and not just lash out at one another. So I think that's very important in keeping.
That's good. That's good. Cameron, how about you and Kendi? If you go back and talk to your 20-year-old self, what would you say?
A lot. But I think the primary thing is humility. To really just show humility. And then also just the secrets only have power in the dark. And when you bring them to light, they lose their power. And so that's one of the things that I think we've really worked hard on. You know, I've told you this before. One of the things we do every anniversary is ask, hey, is there something you would change or do different? And sometimes it's kind of, oh, hey, I wish this, or hey, I wish that, or, you know, and this year for 15 years, you know, I'm thinking, all right, we're doing pretty good. I'm patting myself on the back a little bit. I'm like, this is good. This is gonna be a good year for the questions. And she asked, and she said, so what would you change? And I got snarky and tried to be funny, and it fell flat. And I was like, okay, good. What would you change? Thinking, oh man, you've made some really great changes, and it's really powerful. But the answer that she gave me cut like a two-edged sword. However, if you know that your spouse believes in you, you can receive that feedback as a gift. And I could tell this was hard for her to say, because it's not easy to say what she said, but she said, I wish you wouldn't need the approval of man so much. I wish you wouldn't need the approval of everybody else, because you're pretty good how God made you. And so it was just a challenge to really show humility. And that's the one thing I would say to my 20-year-old self, to my 24-year-old self. Hey, be humble. You don't know everything. Don't pretend like you do. And if you'll show humility, you have that inner peace that you have nothing to prove and only one to please. And that's what I would say.
That's good. That's really good. Hey, would you give everybody a hand? They did a great job. Right? All right, so if I can, I'm going to share just a few things with you just to wrap up, just real quickly, because as I said a few minutes ago, if you want a marriage that lasts a lifetime, you need a lifetime plan. So let me give you a few suggestions and to help you that way. The first thing I would tell you is that you're going to need Jesus. You are absolutely going to need Jesus. In Romans 5:8 it says, but God shows his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. You cannot, I think, successfully navigate through marriage apart from a relationship with Jesus, because God planned marriage. God ordained marriage. God, that was his plan for us to be able to live together. And so why would you want to try and do marriage apart from God? It's just not going to be as successful as it could be, and you're going to end up having a marriage that has regret if you don't have a relationship with Jesus. The second thing I would tell you is you need Jesus as people. You heard everybody sitting up here today talking about how important it is to have a relationship with God, how faith plays a role in their marriage. Proverbs 15:22 says, without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed. And so you need to be involved in church. It's not just come sit and listen, come sit and listen, come sit and listen, come sit and listen. That's not what it's about at all, but it's about being involved. I love that Bob and Colleen talking about that they had been involved, and talking earlier about they had been involved in small groups and Sunday school and had relationships with other people, and that giving was a big part of their life. And I love that Boyd and Pat talk about that they have always been a part of church and how important that has been in their lives as well. Because you can't do it alone. Life's not meant to be lived alone. And so it's not just come sit and listen, come sit and listen, come sit and listen, but it's finding a place where you can serve. It's getting involved and doing some things so that you can use the gifts that God has given you to help others. It means getting involved in a life group. It means being connected with other married couples. It means discipling people who are younger in their faith than you are. It's huge for us to be a part of relationships with other people who are Christ followers. Number 3 is you need prayer and planning. The second week of this series, we talked directly to the men, and I said, men, here's what you got to do. I said, you're the head of the home. You need to pray. You need to lead out in that. And I told you that 2% of Christian marriages where they regularly pray end in divorce. But if you don't pray together as a couple, the percentages jump up to 52, 53% of Christian couples end up getting divorced if they don't pray together. It builds intimacy with the Heavenly Father. It builds intimacy with one another when we pray together. In Proverbs 16:3, it says, commit your work to the Lord and your plans will be established. So you need prayer and planning. You need to say, look, this is where we want to be. You cannot determine your direction if you don't know the destination. You know, when Lori and I first got married, we had some goals and some things that we wanted to do, and then we had children, and then we said, well, how do we want to take care of the children? How do we want to raise them? How do we want to educate them? What's really important? And we would have these conversations and plan things out. Now, we didn't have a 50-year plan, but we always kind of knew that's the direction we're going. Right? And we had a plan for getting far enough ahead so that we could stay ahead in the things that we were working on. And it means regularly communicating with one another. Lori and I, we used to do this every Sunday night. We don't do it every Sunday night anymore because we found a rhythm that works for us. But we have a sync meeting where we synchronize each other's calendars. And I sit there and go, okay, what have you got going on this week? And she says, well, where do we need to be and what do we need to do? That's really important because we don't have this conflict coming from, well, I didn't know you had that going on, and why didn't you tell me? And, you know, and we still miss things every now and then, but we're very intentional about that. And we talk about the big things that are coming up in our lives, and we say, we got to do this in a couple months, and here's something we need to do. And we keep those things in front of one another and planning things out. And those week-to-week, day-to-day kind of conversations begin to build a discipline in you of looking forward to the future. And then number 4, keep on dating each other. You need to pick a schedule that works for you. Lori and I were talking about this the other day. A lot of times we're out 4 or 5 nights a week. And so she doesn't necessarily want date night every single week because we're out a lot. Sometimes date night is, hey, can we stay home tonight? And it's not officially date night. It's like, can we just not go somewhere? And sometimes I'm that way. But if you love date nights every single week, go out every single week. Set a night aside. Say, look, this is date night's one night, family night's another night. Do that. It's important. It makes a big difference. And Lori doesn't love the date night every week. But what she likes is every now and then she wants to go somewhere nice. She wants to go somewhere we're going to get away for a couple of days. And so we're going to do something like that. But find something that works for you. The important thing is you're spending time together and giving your relationship an opportunity to grow. In Proverbs 5:18, it says, let your fountain be blessed and rejoice in the wife of your youth. So let me share your homework with you real quick. And so homework this week. Number 1, each of you decide what are your top 6 priorities. And then how do those things line up with God's will in your life, God's calling in your life? And so the idea is what things are going on in your life right now that are most important. And so then share those with each other. Number 2, write down 10 ways you can serve your spouse. Okay? And you can do the easy things or you can think of hard things, but to come up with at least 10 ways that you can serve your spouse. Number 3, you cannot get this one done this week, but I want to challenge you to go ahead and get it done sometime in the next month or so. Plan a wife day for your wife. That means from the moment she wakes up until the time she goes to sleep that night, everything is all about her. It's wife day. Now, by the way, gentlemen, Mother's Day does not count. She is not your mama. So, in other words, and then ladies, you need to plan a husband day. Now, I know what you're sitting there thinking, every day is already about him anyway. I know. But make a big deal about it. And don't do them back to back. It's not going to work out if you have wife day one day and husband day the next day. It's not going to work out that way. But, a little time between them, but plan a day where everything's about him from the moment he wakes up until he goes to bed. And so plan those 2 days. And the other thing I want to encourage you to do, sometime this year, plan a marriage getaway. I think that every marriage, I think you should have if you can financially get there, you should have a family vacation, and then you should have a marriage vacation where it's just husband and wife. And so find some time, get some time together, and while you're on this marriage getaway, and it really needs to be 3 or 4 days. It doesn't need to be overnight. It needs to be 3 or 4 days. But while you're there, talk about, hey, how are we doing? Are we on track? Do we need to make some course adjustments? Do we need to change direction just a little bit? Does that make sense? This is yes, this is no? Awesome. So Pat told me earlier that she can see everybody in the room from up here, so she knows who said yes and who said no. All right, she'll help me with that. All right, so one more thing I want to share with you, and that's simply this. Number 5, you need flexibility and a sense of urgency. You need to find what works for you. We've shared some principles in the last few weeks. Take these principles and find what works for you in your marriage, but you gotta have a sense of urgency. Don't put it off. Don't say, we can do this one of these days, but no, instead you say, we're going to get this done. Don't be thinking about this later. We'll get this done at some point. There's got to be a sense of urgency about it because of what's at stake. Our marriages are at stake. There's a lot of big stuff that's going on here, right? So, if we can, let's pray.